Freedom is often imagined as a moment, a breaking point, an escape, a single act that separates before from after. But in reality, freedom is rarely that simple. It does not arrive complete. It does not secure itself. It must be protected, maintained, defended. Nanny of the Maroons understood this. In the mountains of Jamaica, communities of formerly enslaved people, known as Maroons, had already taken the first step. They had escaped. They had found distance from plantations, from control, from surveillance. But distance is not the same as safety. Colonial forces continued to pursue them, relentlessly. Freedom, once taken, remained fragile, and fragility requires structure, defense, coordination. Nanny became part of that structure, not simply as a figure of resistance, but as someone who understood that survival alone was not enough. Freedom had to be organized, or it would be lost again. Very little is definitively known about the early life of Nanny of the Maroons. She is believed to have been born in West Africa, possibly among the Akan people, before being taken across the Atlantic through the slave trade. This journey, forced, violent, displacing, reshaped countless lives. Records from this period are limited. Names were often changed, histories erased or fragmented. At some point, Nanny reached Jamaica, where she either escaped or was part of a growing population of Maroons. Her story, like many of her time, exists between documented history and oral tradition. But within that uncertainty, patterns emerge. Leadership, presence, influence. Even when details are unclear, impact remains visible. The Maroons were not a single group, but a network of communities formed by formerly enslaved Africans. They settled in remote, often mountainous regions, places that were difficult for colonial forces to navigate. Distance was their first defense, but it was not their only one. These settlements were organized, structured. They developed systems of governance, rules of cooperation, methods of farming suited to the land. They were not temporary refugees, they were societies in formation, and like any society, they required coordination, leadership, trust. The Maroons were building something stable in a world that resisted their stability. Nanny became closely associated with a settlement known as Nanny Town, located in the Blue Mountains. The placement was intentional. Elevated terrain, dense forest, limited and narrow access routes. It allowed the Maroons to see movement before it reached them, to prepare, to respond, or to vanish. But geography alone does not create security. It must be understood, used, maintained. Paths had to be known, signals communicated, supplies managed. Nanny Town was not simply hidden. It was organized, a space where awareness and discipline shaped daily life. And within that structure, Nanny's leadership became visible. Under leaders like Nanny, the Maroons developed highly effective military strategies. They did not fight in open fields. They avoided direct confrontation. Instead, they relied on guerrilla tactics, ambushes, rapid, unpredictable movement, a deep familiarity with the terrain. They used the mountains as both shield and weapon. Colonial forces trained for conventional battle struggled in this environment. Visibility was limited, movement slowed, communication disrupted. The Maroons adapted faster than their pursuers. They chose when to engage, and when not to. This was not just resistance, it was strategy, a method of sustaining freedom against a more heavily resourced force. Nanny's leadership is described as both strategic and spiritual. She organized responses to threats, coordinated movement, and ensured that knowledge of terrain and tactics was shared. But her influence extended beyond defense. Oral traditions describe her as connected to ancestral practices, ritual, and belief. Whether understood literally or symbolically, this reinforced unity within the community. People were not only defending land, they were defending identity. And in that, Nanny's leadership became central. Conflict between the Maroons and British colonial forces continued for years. Neither side could fully defeat the other. The terrain favoured the Maroons. Resources favoured the British. Eventually, negotiation replaced confrontation. In 1739, treaties were signed with several Maroon groups, recognising their autonomy within defined territories. But the agreements required compromise. One condition obligated the Maroons to return future escaped enslaved people, a demand that placed them in a difficult position. The treaties ended open conflict, but complicated the meaning of freedom. Nanny's life is not preserved through detailed written records. Instead, it survives through oral tradition. Stories told across generations, accounts that carry both history and interpretation. This creates uncertainty. Details shift, moments blur, but it also creates continuity. Her story is not fixed in a single document. It lives, adapts, responds to the needs of those who remember it. This makes Nanny difficult to define in conventional historical terms, but it also ensures that her legacy is not limited by them. Over time, Nanny became more than a historical figure. She became a national symbol. In Jamaica, she is recognized as one of the national heroes. Her image appears on currency. Her name is taught in schools. Her story is revisited, reinterpreted, reaffirmed. Recognition, in this case, is not only about the past, it is about identity, about what is chosen to be remembered, and why. Nanny's presence in national memory reflects more than her actions. It reflects what those actions represent: resistance, endurance, self-determination. Nanny of the Maroons did not simply escape oppression. She helped build something that could endure beyond it, a community that could function, sustain itself, defend itself, under constant pressure. This required more than resistance. It required planning, structure, continuity. Some acts of defiance are brief, moments that disrupt, then disappear. But others persist. They take shape. They hold. Nanny's legacy lies in that endurance, in the ability not just to take freedom, but to keep it, even when everything around it worked to take it back. Some stories fade, others wait to be heard.